Well.
I'm not going to say it.
What'd you say?
I was going to say the number, but that's your deal.
Oh, shit, I mean, it's just another birthday. No, we're celebrating. Yeah, Hayden was 9 on, I don't even know what day it is. It's Sunday. Yeah, Sunday was his birthday. Turned 9, which is a little, which is always cool. Like, I'm sure someday, when he's super bored, probably older, and I'm probably dead and gone, he'll go back and listen to some of these podcasts because it's pretty much like a trajectory of his entire life. Because we started at 2-3 months after he was born, something like that. Because, I used to get the fucking evil eye. And he's screaming and crying. I'm like, yeah, I got to go slide on over to the to the rec room and do this podcast. Before, we still don't really know what we're doing. But before we had any idea what we were doing, I still didn't even know what we're doing. I had less of a clue back then. But I had a little Amazon mic and the plug it in. And we'll just get on there and talk to Mike. He's like, you going to go talk to Mike again? I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to Mike again. And look, here we are. 9 years, part of the podcast, almost 9 years later, still doing it, still kicking strong, still loving it. It's July 22nd, the year 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 865.
Yeah, 865. And we were talking before the cast. I just think it's important to bring it up. I recently had a friend, he's in his 50s, he stopped talking to me because I blew off his birthday party. And I was talking to you about when do we stop thinking about and celebrating birthdays, and I think that might have been 25 years ago for me or something.
Oh, for sure.
People gather up or whatever, that's fine, but it isn't going to be a big to-do.
No, and and athletes, I think, get the picture here, but you'll probably have this too. So I'm sure coaches love seeing the athletes that put in their own birthday in Training Peaks. That's going to give me a soft spot in the heart. You know what? Day off, baby. Day off. I don't have a soft spot for your birthday. You're 49. What do you mean? This isn't your sweet 16 here. We're not going to give you the day off. That
should be an automatic 5,500 yards.
Exactly. And here's the deal. It's if you really want the day off, you request it for the next day. Because if you're going to go out and you're going to party, you're going to have a good time, you don't want the day of your birthday because you want to get up on your birthday, have the day to yourself, get a little workout in, a little run, get your little, 55, times 100s, a little birthday swim. It's the next day you want the day off, because maybe you went out a bit too late, partied with your girlfriends, had a little bit too much to drink, had too much cake, and you're just not feeling it, which makes you feel really old. Slide that in there. Or just straight up be like, hey, listen, I'm going out tonight. I'm going to let it fly. Just don't give me anything tomorrow because, frankly, I'm not going to get it in.
Yeah.
Just be honest, right? Just come up front. Hey, coach, I'm going out tonight. I'm going to karaoke with my boys, and we're going to go line dancing, and it's 2-for-1s, and I'm going to get home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm probably not going to work out tomorrow, and then I'm going to regret it, but I'm doing it, and we're all in. Perfect. Day off, right? Maybe even a choice day. I might even roll you in a choice day or a 2K swim. But yeah, the old slide in birthday note. I'm not giving you any I'm not giving you any birthday something unless you're turning 21 or 16 or maybe even 50. If you're turning 50, or 40, I might give you a little bit of a jab. Hey, did things feel a little bit harder today? Now that you're a senior citizen. But yeah, anything outside of that, the ship sailed to celebrating birthdays a while ago.
But now that they know, you should automatically have to put a choice day in because they realize.
Exactly. It's
the next
exactly
day.
Right. Yeah. Let all kinds of secrets out. Hey, just, that's how you strategize, right? It's your friend that is always going to be late. You tell them 15 minutes ahead of time. Hey, be here this time, even though they're going to be late, so they end up on time. You can't do it the opposite way, setting your own clock ahead 5 minutes. So you're always, because all you do is look at your clock. Do people still do that?
I do.
They get you do that. It doesn't work.
Well, I don't have any clocks, but I used to do that.
You get the old Spartacus, the old school Spartacus, bedside table clock with the digital red on, and you're like, give me one extra snooze. I'm going to set it, 5 minutes ahead. That way I'm always early. I'm like, no, you're not. Because every time you look at it, you're going to be like, shit, I got 5 extra minutes. I know that thing is ahead. You just play zero mind games at all.
Yeah, I forget that I did it. I'm usually just so in that moment that I think it's real. Real. Anyway, I got a thing. What you asked if I had a topic. I don't have a topic, but I did somehow on. I watch a lot of YouTube. I'll go into that. That's sort of, instead of TV, I'll kind of just go in there and see if there's something I really am interested in or whatever. And one of the things came up the other day was I think it was the last Olympics or whatever, Katie Ledecky's 800.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, and she obviously smashed her own world record in that race. But one of the things that stuck out to me, because they were kind of talking about how she was handling each direction in the pool, and she said she was going fast. I mean, they said she was going faster, and they weren't sure if that was because her family was on that side and she could see him. But that's not what the point is. But the point is they were counting her laps or lengths, I guess, and one way was going a little bit faster, but I noticed like as she got into the because she wasn't kicking at all, hardly, just a little
zero. She probably did like the last 100,
but
maybe
she started picking it up like at 400, like she kicked a little bit more, and then in the last lap or length, I think the last lap, she just started putting the hammer down. But what I found interesting about it, and I just thought this might be an interesting like conversation for a second here, is that she really wasn't making up that much time as she was balls to the walls kicking.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was interesting. I mean, she was floating along. Basically, what would it be? 50s or like hundreds were right around 101 or something like that, maybe. Does that sound about right? Yeah, because it was 804.
For long course meters? Yeah, she's maybe a little bit. Yeah, she's probably swam the 800 in like 808, 809 probably max.
I thought it was 804. There was a record that she set. But.
Okay, then yeah, I mean she's pretty famous for a straight up even split or like bringing it back home on like 100. Because there's a couple like a mile guys like Bobby Fink, who's for the U.S. He swims the mile. He basically like he's not swimming slow by any stretch. But the last like 100, 150, he freaking hammers it. I mean, you would think he was swimming like a just all out 50. But going back to your point, I think this is like a good point for all. I mean, honestly, for swim, bike, and run, and regardless of the distances, when you see them, like for her, because obviously she's the best of it. She's easily the best female swimmer that's ever lived. I mean, you could argue that she's the best swimmer that's ever lived. She's just, I mean, how long she's been able to stay at the top of the game, stay injury free, honestly, to me, the most, and I'll kind of go into like probably like the pacing and like the nuance behind, picking up effort and maintaining speed here in a minute. But to me, the most impressive thing about her is how she's been able to stay in the game mentally for what feels like 2 decades. Like to get to the top of the sport is, I think, one of the biggest drivers for all athletes, right? Regardless if you're an age grouper, like you want to get to a certain time, you want to win your age group, you want to qualify for Kona, you want to do your first Ironman. If you're a professional, you just want to make it to the pros. And then that's like the pinnacle. And then you see a lot of people just like fall off and falter. Like getting there is the top for them. Or getting to the Olympics or winning gold medal. You're like, what's after that? There legit isn't anything above that for swimming, at least. There is nothing. And I mean, arguably any Olympic sport, at least, I mean, I think most people would say like, and you even hear this from like NBA, basketball players. They're like, I'd take a gold medal over, an NBA championship, like what it means to represent your country. But anyway, to win a gold medal in a sport and then to come back, hey, I've got 4 more years to do it again. And she's done it, I think it's like her 5th time. The amount of, it's unbelievable.
Dude,
the amount of
she won by
focus.
10 seconds.
I know. And
that's
800. The other part, right?
Like,
is that she has gone all in, which is one of the biggest reasons she's been so successful on competition with herself. Because she's had to, because no one else has even really like threatened her at the 800 in the mile like that. They just haven't. Some of the shorter, I mean, now she's a little bit not behind, but she was also dominant for a while, the 200, the 400, 800 and the mile. Now it's more the long stuff because there's some stronger, younger girls that are more competitive and being able, like, at some point you're going to slow down a little bit that fast stuff. But she, like, you look at, I think it was like a graphic that they showed of like the top 30 800 times of all time, and she has 29 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, she wakes up every single day and has breakfast with the one person on the planet that can beat her, and it's herself. And like to have that kind of focus, to get yourself out of bed, to keep trying, because honestly, it's not like swimming has all these new inventions like carbon shoes and race wheels and aero bars and new nutritional strategies. It's like you got the pool, you got the black line. It's just like you and the clock. And so it mean to me, like, again, like just a small little sidebar, but I think everybody, every athlete, regardless of what kind of athlete you think you are, whatever sport you're in, to have that kind of like internal drive to continue to beat your own self and your own records, and to be in that process for what seems like 2 whole decades, 4 to 5 Olympic cycles that only happen every 4 years. Like, that's all that matters to her. All that matters to her are gold medals. So you only get to do it every 4 years. So to keep that in, and, as triathletes, we might have a hard bike ride in the morning, and then by the evening, somebody want to change our whole entire race schedule. It's like, I just think we could take like so much, not just from her ability physically and how she's been able to dominate, but just the mental, focus, and honestly, how she's carried herself like through this whole thing. Like, you never hear about her having like these really down periods that's pretty predominant with high level swimmers. Like, Caleb Dressel comes to mind. He went through a pretty dark depressive state where he just wasn't even swimming after not this last Olympics, before that. And it's a marvel to me, again, before we even like talk about the physics and the anatomy of like that kind of a swim and why you do it that way and how it relates to triathlon. I just think it has to be said, like, how incredible it is for someone like that to be that great for that long.
Yeah, I mean, how? It's like,
I know.
Swimming in a pool all that time. I mean, it's got to be something special. I mean, I actually started reading her book. I didn't get too far into it, but she just always seems to have the right demeanor about it. And, at that level, I mean, just holding on to what she done, never mind getting better, but just hanging on and staying with it, and, just still finding complete joy out of it. But I guess if you're dominating so hard, that's probably pretty fun.
Yeah, but I mean, you usually see like the next crop of athletes. This is true for every sport, like triathlon and pretty much all sports, especially individual sports. A little bit harder on team sports, but unless it's like a standout athlete, is like the next big dominant athlete came because they idolized another swimmer or runner or triathlete or basketball player or football player that they knew, in order for me to be the best, I've got to raise my level that high, right? So Katie Ledecky in her mid to late 20s, early 30s, like all these up and coming swimmers that want to do the 800 mile, like they're like, hey, if I'm going to wake up today and I'm going to get to work, I got to beat the best of the best that's ever lived. And that usually raises their game to where they'll eventually take over.
Yeah.
Right. So like going back to like, watching Wimbledon and seeing, Alcaraz and Sinner, and like how much they revere Djokovic, and it's like some other guys, like you raise the game because the game has been raised before you. And so just to see how dominant and how there's been zero turnover. I mean, you see that all the time, like in major sports and even individual sports, like you eventually pass the torch. I mean, she's had the torch for forever.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's a true testament to her ability to dial it in. And even to this day, at her age, she's still savage. I mean, when you see her finish a race and beat it, like, she doesn't give a shit about anybody else in that pool except for her, and acts and squeezing the absolute most out of every minute and second she has in the water. And that probably, and honestly, that probably starts on a Monday, right? When she gets up and she's like, she doesn't have the Olympics for 3.5 years. I bet you she walks. I mean, not every day, right? No one's perfect, or no one doesn't have like any bad days. But I bet she walks in the pool up thinking, I'm going to absolutely max myself out today. right? Not as in like going hard 24/7, but like I have to pay attention because at her age now she has to pay even more attention than she ever has, on the things that, she probably could have gotten away with years, which is the same for us, right? As triathletes, like, in our 20s, 30s, yeah, I mean, you can you can get away with. I mean, hell, I got away with drinking, like a freaking fish. Like you can get away with that. As you get older and you have more responsibilities and stresses and priorities, like you can't just wake up and do it the way you want to do it and expect a great result still, because your body and your mind, your metabolism, takes over your natural ability. You got to start paying more attention to recovery and in a triathletes, I mean, again, like we're not famous for that, but it's like we have so many different sports going on that I think a lot of times as they start to accumulate and as life stress starts to accumulate, like we don't pay attention enough to having to pay more attention on the recovery side to adapt. But yeah, so anyway, going back to your original topic about or what you noticed about that is, we say this all the time in the 800. The 400 to me in the pool is the hardest event because it's like it's an all-out sprint for 400. It's like very little pacing. The 800, however, like you start out at that speed, and she's got the overall upper body muscular endurance and power to hold that rate of speed. Because I guarantee you, after every 100, she can tell you what her split is, but not even looking at the clock. Right? If she finished 100 and she said, hey, what pace was that before the clock? She'd be like, oh, that was a 101 high, and it'd be like a 101.8, or that was a 102 low. It'd be a 102.10. I mean, I guarantee you she is that dialed in with her pacing. So they know exactly what to do, because if you're her, you're not swimming off of other people. Right, which everybody else is swimming for second through eighth. They swim to win the race, right? The win is the win, and they're trying to get second or third. So a lot of times in the more competitive fields and races, the swimmers will just swim in and around what they need, just like you see them in prelims, right? None of them go all out. They just know that they probably need a 56 change to make it to the next round. So they go out a little bit fast, they're bringing home fast, and they know what they're swimming in the water without looking. 56 low. That'll get you to. They don't want to go odd. They want to save their energy for it. But on a race like the 800, she's probably got enough muscular endurance and power to maintain, a minute flat, 59, maybe low 101 for the first 300 to 400 without doing really any kick, because she doesn't. I mean, she barely kicks at all. I mean, it's just there for a little bit of balance, I think, with that big gallop stroke that she has, and it's just so powerful and so fluid. But then in order to maintain that speed, even though her kick isn't giving her that much more propulsion, in order to maintain that speed, she's got to be able to pick up the pace a little bit, right? She's got to be able to pick, or not the pace. She has to be able to put out a little more effort to maintain that speed, which is, to me, the perfect example of long course racing. Like you come out of the gates for the run at a 7.3 and a full, you're not going to negative split it. I mean, unless like something happens like catastrophic in the first like 5 miles, you have to walk the whole thing, and all of a sudden you're like magically better. You're going to go out, and like the best thing you can do is even split. I mean, that's true for the marathon too. If you look at all the marathon majors, the top runners, like they'll either barely negative split by a few seconds, or it'll be an even split within like 20. No one goes out, super fast and fades and still wins, and no one goes out super slow and then comes back and still wins. It's more even. They just have to lift the effort. And I think,
just quickly on that negative split, I think that's the point that a lot of us miss, is that negative split doesn't mean by 20 minutes, kind of thing. It just means that you're going to have to, even if it to me, like negative split is an even split almost. It's like you're saying, it's like you got to get somewhere deeper and to me, that's the muscle you train, right? Is it's sort of, how do I, hold on to this? And that means that you got to go harder, but it's sort of almost a negative effort split, in a way.
And I mean, and that's like in swimming and cycling and running and the whole race itself, like you want to be able to have that, not that next gear to like rain down more power, but to have that extra gear to maintain the speed you want to keep going at. And to me, that comes down to pacing, but it also, a huge component of that is just how you choose to train. Right? Are you more obsessed with going fast and all the time? Or are you more concerned with like how, your ability to, resist fatigue, your fatigue resistance, your overall durability, as an athlete? Because again, like it's 70.3 and full distance races, which is what, a lot of people do in triathlon, or they want to at some point. It's all about that. It's all about how long you can go at a certain rate of speed before you become so fatigued that your form breaks down, or your ability to, keep up with the caloric deficit you're creating starts to impact your performance, or you're just no longer able to generate the same watts because your heart rate's, your capacity to generate that, becomes, so much, or your power goes up and your power goes down, your heart rate goes up. And there's just like, there's so many ways you can do that. So, I would love to just like kind of take a peek behind the curtain for training and see, like, as an 800, like, yes, you got to focus on, and a lot of those, right? Like the races and the that are like swimming and running that are finite, right? 25 yards, 25 yards. You're always going to be able to measure yourself against a set distance in a standard stroke in a controlled environment. And that's why some people love it so much, because you got better or you didn't. Yes, there's a little, like adversity sometimes. You were doing long course and you're in an outdoor pool and it's hotter and you could get some wind and chop, and it might be slower time. It's like, yes, but outside of that, it's you got better or you didn't. I love that. I still to this day like love that about swimming, is it's just so absolute. And so in order to win these races, like, you've got to maintain a certain speed. So you might do like, USRPT, like ultra short race pace training. Like if you got to swim, 15s, then you go out and you train as hard as you can to swim a 15, and then you rest for 2 or 3 minutes and you go do it again. And even a lot of pro triathletes do that. They know what watts per kilogram they need to be able to hold for the bike and what pace they need to be holding the run. That's like their, LT1 or LT2. And they just train that until they get to the point where like, okay, this is make me competitive. But for us mere mortals, right? Like we need to train in a way that's going to make our body more resilient, how we're going to pace it correctly, how we're building ourselves, how we're building our engine, right? Are we going to be, a two-door, roadster sports car that's only going to be, good, but can break down easily, but we can go fast for short periods of time, and then we overheat? But then, or do we want to be more of like a diesel engine that can just go and go and go and do it for a long period of time and withstand, crappy roads and rough seas and hilly runs, all that goes back to like what kind of athlete, you are and how you're choosing to build yourself. And you can listen to podcasts and other coaches and sports scientists talk about, what phenotype, like a certain athletes are, and with their muscle fiber type, they got more fast twitch, than more slow twitch. But to me, a lot of it, we end up being what we want to be because that's what we like or how we see ourselves. Like if you see yourself as a speedster, you're going to be a speedster, because you know what you're going to do? Speed work all the time because you love it, right? If you become that, if you think you're a long course guy and all you're going to do is long course, you're like, yeah, I'm a long course guy, but I'm taking the next 3 years off to do short course so we work on my speed. No one ever does that. I mean, you should, but maybe not for that long. But that's just, you are, and doesn't mean you shouldn't work on the other stuff. But sometimes, like to me, like if you believe what you are, then you just end up becoming that. But again, I also don't think there's anything wrong with that. Not to say like there's not a couple, hoods the car you probably shouldn't look under to improve, from a training standpoint. But it usually also means you're totally bought into it. And belief to me goes a long way. If you believe you're a diesel engine, then you're going to believe that you can train to become and better that diesel engine that you believe you already are. But if I ask you to do 6 months of speed work, you're not going to think you can do it because that's not who you are. So you're not going to be as bought in. You might not execute as well. But that's what, for an athlete like hers, again, like I'd love to see like what kind of training she does during the week and like the volume she puts in, and then like where she places intensity. Like does she do, 500, 600, 800, thousands, to like build up some fatigue, and then do like a bunch of 50s and 100s over race pace on tired arms, tired legs, or do you flip that and do some of those over race pace stuff at the beginning, and then do longer, like maybe pull paddle sets to increase muscular endurance and that fatigue resistance later on. I mean, and that's the same thing with swimming and cycling and running. You know, like, where do you place intervals? You place in the beginning, and then you got to run solid on tired legs. You place them at the end, you know, because you can negative split, because then you're having to work harder, right? Just like the 800, you're having to work harder on a negative split run, where we're asking you to run hard the last like 20, 25 minutes to hit, you know, your zone 3 or zone 4 effort, pace, or feel, whatever it might be, or heart rate. You know, you're going to have to work harder because your legs are already tired. So you get a little extra, you know, boost in like adaptation and stimulus, because you're having to work harder to do it, you know. Or do you want it done completely fresh? And then you're asking to run like, you know, zone 2 at the end. And there's, you know, a ton of ways to do that. But for triathletes, especially, like, again, doing like longer course racing, that durability piece to me is, you know, is just, it's so underrated in terms of looking at the overall picture of an athlete. You know, it'd be like Katie Ledecky, you know, walking on deck with some of the sprinters, right? And, you know, and this is very true in, like, you know, a transition area, or like, you know, on Facebook groups, you know, for these pre-races. She might get on deck and she'd be like, you know, hey, like, you know, what, you know, for the sprinters for the U.S., you know, like Simone Manuel, who's like a 50, and she's like, yeah, she's got like probably 3 maybe 2 to 3 seconds on Ledecky over the 50 and the 100. But then if you asked her to swim over 400, Ledecky would probably beat her by a minute. Yeah. Right? So it's all about, what are you training for, and what do you want to be good at, and what are you good at? Because I guarantee you, man, she probably beat her by, I mean, God, probably well over a minute, maybe a minute and a half.
Yeah, well,
just because. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, well, that to me is an interesting question, right? In this age of sort of cloning that we are in, it feels like, in a lot of ways, where people are either literally doing that or just kind of really knowing what everybody else is doing. How much of a secret can her training be? And then I also think about that in regards to Tadej Pogacar, because like they're both so dominant. And I start thinking about that. I'm like, you know, Vingegaard's kind of in that realm. And those two together are like just completely above the spectrum. But it's like Pogacar right now is just so much better than everybody. And it just, like, how does that happen? You know, is it the training, or is it because it's just, or is it lightning in a bottle with just the physical skills? And the one thing I did read in that Ledecky book is that at one point in her career, she sort of discovered, or one of her coaches helped her discover that gallop stroke or whatever, that different style of swimming that just sort of clicked with her and her body and her mind or whatever. And then so you start thinking about that. You know, I did see like one of Teddy, whatever.
You guys are boys if you're calling him Teddy.
Teddy,
what's up, Teddy?
Boy. I saw like he was in his yellow jersey warming up for a stage, and he was just getting after it, you know? So, you know, at that level, it's very interesting. I saw an interview with him. He said his zone 2 rides are like 340 or 330 watts or some crazy thing, you know? But like, yeah, what is that? You know, you're talking about, Katie Ledecky's training, and I mean, like, how much different can it be than these other?
None.
That's the thing. It's like, what is, you know, but I think your original point was the thing is it's her demeanor and her attitude and her approach. It's almost like, it seems to me like, and this is the same with Teddy, is that it almost seems to me like she makes like, she loves the water, like in a literal sense, in that it, like, she lets it be her friend. And Pogacar does the same thing with hills and just out on the terrain. It's like they're not resisting, they're not fighting their terrain at all. And they've mentally gotten to a place where, like, she's in the water, and instead, you know, you see a lot of swimmers who just try so damn hard, and they're smashing the water and everything, and she's just like going with it, like she's at one with it. And that's what it almost feels like with Pogacar too. He's just like at one with the terrain. Like whatever it is, he's just, you know, not looking at, you know, a hill as a hill. He just is like, this is something I need to just connect with deeper or something like that. It's really wild. So sometimes I really think about that kind of thing is how are they approaching what they're doing from a sense of oneness?
Well, I mean, I think a part of that, well, not a part, I think a huge part of that, right, is, yes, I mean, listen, like, there's probably 15 different ways to train a person to get a pretty similar result, or 15 different ways to get someone within the same, percentage to where it's negligible based on like having a good day or a bad day. To me, it's the ability to do it right day in and day out for such a long period of time. Right. Yeah, you can be dialed in the last 6 months leading up to the Olympics, but how were you the first 6 months after the last Olympic cycle came through? Were you back in the pool 5, 6, 7 days a week? Were you back doing the stuff that you need to do? Were you working in? Were you dialed in then? Because I mean, this is true for all athletes, especially true for athletes with like finite dates on the calendar and events like triathletes is, everybody, and this is true for everyone. Like we like to be very much like a prisoner in the moment when we're doing things well, 4 to 5 weeks out from a race, because it's upon us, right? We're dialed in, baby. We're in the zone. But then if you look back to like November, December, January, February, like where you weren't doing anything, like you're still trying to get back the time that you lost when you chose to not do anything. And that's probably where she excels. Same for your boy Teddy. I mean, they're always doing, and yes, like I do believe that like a very small piece of it is some genetics, but I think more of it is just, it's from the chin up. Right. I mean, I was reading like a study on like youth athletes a few weeks ago, and it basically said like, if coaches or parents tell you you're really good at something, then you're more likely to stick with it because you feel like you're really good at it. Or if they tell you you're bad at it, you're probably going to quit. But the reality is you probably don't know like if you're even going to peak until for like another 6, 7, 8 years. And like the best players at 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the ones that burn out and quit at 15, 16, 17. And the ones that could have maybe found their way might not even play that sport again because they quit because they were told they weren't good enough, or they weren't fast enough, or they weren't agile enough, or they weren't going to ever make, the travel team. And so they quit. But you don't ever, like, there's thing is like everyone has a different trajectory. I mean, you see it all the time in sports, right? 5-star recruits that end up being trash in college. And then you see college guys, that are drafted in the first round that end up being, third stringers and journeymen in the NFL or even out of the league in 2 years. Like everyone peaks at a different time. And in the same time, you see 5th, 6th, 7th rounders come out of nowhere, right? It's like, to me, it's all about like how long you can keep yourself engaged in the game. And sure, there's always going to be athletes that have like a little more, genetic, ability, or, that it's just in them, right? And I do think that's kind of the case, like with people like Ledecky and Pogacar. Like, is it all genetics? No, but they probably have something within them that drew them to the water or drew them to the bike. And when you have that sense of like comfort, you're able to do things more than other people and better than other people, because that's you just like, that's your comfort zone. That's just who you are. Like, if he has a bad day, he's not, Teddy ain't, to your boy TP, he's not heading to the pool, right? He's not like, man, I had a rough day at home today, I'm probably going to go to the pool. No, he's getting on his damn bike. Same for Ledecky. She's traveling. She's like, I've had a rough day. There's a rough travel. I had a speech I had to give at Stanford, and man, I'm stressed. I think I'm gonna hop on the old Peloton in the Westin. No, she's trying to find like a pool to swim into. Like, and I think that like the way we choose, like what we chase and what we choose in our moments of not despair, but like when we're stressed and we need some relief, or the flip side, like what we choose to do when we're happiest, I think tells us a lot about ourselves intrinsically, and not from like a gene standpoint, because that's like overly, that's super scientific, but from just like an intuition standpoint, like I think if we would listen to that more and probably lean into that more, we would be better off in certain areas, right? And I'm not saying like avoid your weaknesses and only work on your strengths, but I mean, I think every athlete has their favorite of the three, like swim and bike and run, right? And I think a lot of times we try to force, our weaknesses or do too much of them, and we just kind of fall out of love with other things. Just like, you got heat training right now, and if you do it 7 days a week, eventually you're gonna cave. You're not gonna want to do any of it because it's too damn hot and you burnt your mental biscuits. But I think if we would just kind of learn and lean into those things that we, again, we talk a lot about, science and training and data, on this podcast, not nearly as much as others, but we're both big on just intuition and feel and just what is your gut telling you. And I think a lot of times, if we would listen to that about ourselves, it's not there for no reason. Right. Your gut feelings aren't there for no reason. Yes, things in your head and your mind that's maybe ego driven, yeah, those are there for a reason. You're scared of something, you're intimidated by something, you're worried about something, you're anxious. Sometimes those thoughts creep, but in the more calmer states that we have, if you feel drawn to the pool or to the bike or to the run, and, then that's probably telling you something. That's what's best for you today. And it's not so much like the phrases that you and I hear sometimes training piece, the body wanted to run today, coach. It wanted to run. You're talking about just wanting to go fast. And I also get that. But a lot of times, you see people I just needed to head out for a run today. Go for it. Right. Something was telling you something that you needed to listen to. But when we fight those things a lot, I think we become even more, disconnected with a lot of things. And I think, it's just, again, with Ledecky and Pogacar and the top tier, the Blumenfelds, that dude just loves what he does, man. It's really interesting to watch those three guys go out and train, Casper, Stornes, and Eden and Blumenfeld, and how scientific they can be in terms of what they probably monitor in their training, but how they also just go out and stop on coffee shop rides, and they're eating, bagels and croissants and, slamming pizzas and having a good time and making jokes. And, that to me, that's also what's kept them in the game for so long, to be as good as they are. And I just think the age in which we live in, where it's either we want it now and we want it quick, right? We want it right now all the time. I think that is a huge impediment to success for most age group athletes. And on the flip side, I also think having immediate success is also a detriment, because you have a hard time rationalizing and thinking how can I get any better than this? And the fact is just you may have just stumbled upon it. You may have totally fucked up your training and still did an amazing race, and you're thinking, how am I ever going to do this again? But there could be a better way that's less hours or less intense, or the vice versa. And so I think both ends of those spectrums can scare athletes away from wanting to continue to do the work that allows them to really reach their full potential. Because as we all know, it doesn't happen this year, it doesn't happen this season, it doesn't happen this month or this week or this workout. It happens as you stack them over and over and over and over and over again. And I think a lot of times, again, in the world that we live in now, where it's you want everything right now in 2 seconds, I really want this thing on Amazon. I gotta wait till tomorrow. Right? It's it's just we live just in that crazy world where we want everything now, and it causes irrational decisions and panic, and we get in our own way so much, instead of just hey, this, this worked, and we gotta keep plugging away. We gotta keep doing that work. And a lot of times it's the same work over and over and over. You think Ledecky's ever we gotta do more 400s today, coach? She's I don't give a shit what we do. As long as it's going to make me better, I'm here for it. And a lot of times, again, especially for swimming, they're usually so fatigued. I mean, they're not breaking world records in the pool at practice. They have to wait weeks. Yeah, I mean, she probably is. You got to wait weeks and months and years to take off what? A couple hundredths of a second?
Yeah. Well, I think that's really one of the most difficult pieces to understand about this sport. And I can just say, from somebody who never came from endurance training, to really understand what it takes to kind of, I guess, get to your potential in this sport, it takes a long ass time. And like you're saying, a lot of people lean towards either swim, bike, or run for various reasons. And usually it's because they are comfortable and they enjoy it and they grew up doing it or whatever. And I think it's probably mostly swim and then secondarily bike. But as far as like how little background you have in it, and as a guy who didn't start swimming until he was right around 50 years old, and there's a lot of us like that in this sport, and we don't realize how much time it takes to get good at that. And I've had my moments where I've seen glimpses of like, hey, I could be a pretty good swimmer, that type of thing. But I've been swimming a crap ton. But like you're saying, that 3 or 4 weeks leading into a race when you're feeling dialed in, that's one thing. But to be able to go out and execute that on a long course race is a totally different thing. You might feel like you're I kind of got it here, but if you haven't really built that ability to sustain that, and like you're saying, that durability, that's like something that I don't think a lot of people respect, including me. It's sort of like, I could probably turn it on if everything goes well, this weekend, I could have a decent race. But, the odds of that are severely diminished if you don't put in the back work. And with swimming, man, like I said, sometimes, in my career here, I've spent 2-3 weeks in the pool almost every day. And then by the end of that 3 weeks, I'm like, I feel pretty good about this now. And then, you just let it go or whatever. But, so if you can sort of time it like that, sometimes it works, but most times it doesn't. I think that you really, I always use the analogy, it's like learning a foreign language when you're an adult. It's almost impossible compared to when you're a kid. It's something you don't like to do. So I think that I agree. It's nice to, like, if you feel like, it's better to do nothing or something than nothing. So go out and go for that run that you need to go out for. But if you really want to get better at biking or swimming and you're not that, good at it, you really got to put in the time. And then at some point, and so this is where I kind of go wrong, is like, maybe I'll do that for a month or 3 weeks and swim almost every day or whatever leading up to a race, like I did that time in Louisville. And then I swam Louisville, had a really good swim, and then I just quit swimming. But I think that's a lot of what we do sometimes. And you're saying, we always, athletes are always like, do I need to, have a coach, for, the fall or whatever? And I'm like, that's probably maybe the most important time, because if it helps you stay with it and, work on things to get better, maybe work on stuff you're not good at. And, from an accountability perspective, if nothing else, man, think about how different things could be if you had, 9 months of base training or 10 months versus like 4, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of this vicious cycle that I think a lot of us, and I certainly go through it. So I'm not, saying anything about me necessarily, but I do understand that that's really important, so whatever it takes to stay kind of in the pocket during the fall after your racing season is pretty huge. And I do think that, man, if you're really serious about getting better at something you're not good at, you got to just put in a lot of work. I mean, like, a lot, like, to the point where you're like maybe not liking it, but then at some point you start to get better. And that's when I think you'd like it, when you're getting better, when you're starting to be like, oh, okay, I can be a swimmer or whatever, so those are the things that are, that's what makes this sport so difficult, to be honest. So, man, I mean, you can feel like you're grooving in one, and then you're like, damn, I think I forgot how to bike. I haven't been biking, it's just, it's very difficult to kind of stay primed on all three. It's sort of this like floating scale of you're good, you're in shape with that, and then you're not in shape with that, and then you got to get that back, but then you lose the other shit. It can get tricky for sure, but I do think that the longer you do it and the more consistent you do it, that those waves aren't as high anymore. They kind of level out, and you can kind of pick it back.
Yeah, no, I love what you said there, and I'm trying to end it out on a summary, but like, I think that's like one of the biggest deterrents for most athletes in trying to get better is they think they have to go completely all in and all three and do so much to get better. And then they either one, just like dieting, right? Like I'm going to quit sugar and caffeine and all liquids and all solids today, and I'm going to drop weight. And it lasts for about 48 hours. And you're like, and then I'm toast. Right. And then until you regress and you end up like adding weight. So it's like, I don't have the mental bandwidth to go all in. Then just sneak in. Right? Just do something to at least be in. You don't have to be all in. Just dip your toes in. I don't want to get in the pool. Okay, well, just sit on the side of the pool, put your feet in. Next thing you know, you're like, I'm getting pretty hot. I think I'm maybe I'll sit on the stairs. And then next thing you know, you're like, okay, this water feels pretty good. I think I'm like, I'm gonna go all the way in. It's like, or I'm gonna cold plunge. I'm gonna do it for 5 minutes. It sounds like too much. Then do it for like 20 seconds. And then like as you create that confidence, as you create that motivation, as you do all those kind of things, like then you kind of end up being all in without even kind of knowing you're all in, right? It just, because when you force it, certain things happen, you end up kind of forcing your way out of it or talking yourself, because it just seems like a lot, right? It's just a lot to ask for yourself. And telling you, like you'd be better off. There's the guys and the girls that go all in for a year and crush it, and then they're so burnt out they don't do shit for like a year and a half, 2 years. They want to come back to the sport. And then there's the people who like kind of come in and like, even if they're like on the periphery of it, they're like kind of in, they're kind of out, kind of dabbling. 3 years down the road, when that other person comes back that puts down like an elite time, they haven't done anything for 2 years. Like the person who's just been dabbling, guess what? They're in a better spot. They're still in the game. And they probably went in through a phase where they're all in and they pull back a little bit, and they go all in and they pull back a little bit. Like it's just, you got to have that balance. And I think, again, forcing yourself to go all in, never really works out well for most people. Forcing yourself to go all in is usually a pretty good way of like finding, your way to the exit door. But going all in on like trying to find your love and your groove and your routine and your schedule, and being like really enjoying the process of just getting better and being fit and being healthy, like hard to argue with that going anywhere. It's like, because it's such a intrinsic thing. I think most of us feel is like to try to better ourselves mentally, emotionally, and physically as good as we can. And I think if we keep that in like the forefront, then the other stuff tends to just kind of show up on its own, and it just becomes who you are and what you do, and not something that you have to do.
Very well said. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. I don't know. That's it. I was also just kind of peeking out the window. So one of my neighbors is trying to learn supboard, and she just bit it.
Get back up on the board, baby.
Yeah. Don't give it up. That's a really actually interesting analogy. We'll see how often she gets out there now.
Exactly. I think she's back out tomorrow.
She's struggling now. I remember that phase of my supboarding career too. It was not. It's dicey, man, once you start trying to do that. But eventually it comes, and now it's easy, and now I like it a lot more. So.
Exactly right. Not everything comes to us easy.
Yeah, stay in the game and keep working. One other thing I did notice that, how the videos pop up after, and that Katie Ledecky thing, and it was just a quick thing. But I just thought it was the most awesome thing. Did you watch? I'm sure you did. I think it was Rio the last Olympics? I can't remember. But anyway, I think it was an Olympic marathon swim, and it some dude from Australia was just like dusted out and led by like 200 yards for like most of the race, and it was almost like it was just like the peloton. The dude just crumbled.
Him back.
And then it was an all-out sprint for like 500 meters with like 15 dudes, man. You talk about intense. They were just bouncing off each other and just slamming. Their turnover was unbelievable. They just turned it up. It's an incredible event to watch. It was just like a photo finish kind of thing. But it's not who starts, who wins. That shit was just ridiculous. They just swallowed him.
Man. Well, Just goes to show you. Got it. Well, and that's the thing is like that was probably his game, right? He was like, I can't swim the pack. He probably didn't have the same closing speed, as the other guys. He's like, I'm gonna win it. I gotta win it off the front. I'm not gonna out swim anybody in a 50 after that. I gotta go just like steady Eddie and see if I can hold him off. Just like when they're going for like the stage win. They can't out sprint. They can't out sprint if they stay in. They gotta go for their blow and they can take it.
That's just, by the way, that's my favorite thing about the Tour de France is when there's somebody leading, breakaway, and they lead the stage for like the last 40 miles, and they get to that home stretch and they come around that last corner, and you can see him by himself, and then all of a sudden all those bikes come rambling after his ass and just swallow him up with about 50 yards to go. It's just crazy to me, man, how they time that out.
They go from first to like 100th.
Yeah, they just fade off to the side.
45 seconds.
Shit. I love looking at when they kind of peek back and look, and they see like all those guys just coming up on them. Mm-hmm. That's just got to be the weirdest feeling, man. It's like, damn it, 50 yards away from
you right in.
Yeah, the stage win. Wow. Anyway, all right, man.
Well, hope you guys enjoyed today, and we'll check you later. Have a great week, and get out there and be your best, Ledecky and Teddy.
Got it. All right, man. See you later.
See you.